The Sahtu is a region in the Northwest Territories. It's approximately the size of Texas. We're located on the Mackenzie River. The Mackenzie Mountains are to our west.
Well, the Satu is 5 communities. We got Good Hope, we got Norman Wells, we got Tulida, we got Delaney and Cove Lake.
Majority of everybody in the Satu region is Indigenous, mostly Dene people.
Then we have the non-Indigenous and Métis that live in the area. Norman Wells itself is a little more diverse in the demographics of the people than the other communities are.
We're a remote community, a remote region, only accessible by winter road for about 4 months of the year, by water, the Mackenzie once it's flowing, and air.
Like all the Satu communities, more traditional, moose hunting, caribou hunting, fishing, dry fish making.
Everybody else and myself, we all live off the land, gotta survive.
Life is peaceful, it's a little more free-spirited and less stress. Just going about our daily lives, trying to improve our quality of life here in the community.
The cost of living is just so high.
Whether it's for food, whether it's to keep your lights on, keep your home heated.
We're in Norman Wells, in the Satu region of the Northwest. That's Ethel Wanda Andrews, so she's this country's.
Dozen of eggs costs about $12. About the same range too, about $12 for a liter of milk. A loaf of bread is about $8. Even for a 12-pack of pop is about $35. Price of groceries has increased dramatically because of the avgas that's used for flying groceries in.
A lot of our groceries in the fall and this winter had to get flown in. You can't be surprised if you go and buy an orange for $5 in town. During the summer months, our groceries typically have come in on the barge.
We depend on these barges to bring our fuel up. The whole year's basically worth of fuel comes and is stored in the tanks.
The barge that we're expecting to bring all the freight to the community that we rely on, whether it's for groceries or fuel, we depend on that. And the barge didn't make it here this past summer.
You can't rely on them because of the water level in the Mackenzie River.
Sometime in June, on my boat, you could see how deep the water is, even on the boat channel. In the first week of October, I hit sandbar there. Some places it's 3-4 feet deep. So the water really dropped.
We know there's a lot of sandbars coming up, places where there never been sandbars before, and a lot of landslides too happening in our region, sliding into the Mackenzie after it's been burnt. And then that slides into the river, and that has a lot of effect on us here living. When you're out hunting, you know, we usually go up these rivers where there's a lot of moose, a lot of caribou, but now we just got to stick mainly on the Mackenzie, and even that's getting shallow for us now.
There was days that I remember when, even during the spring breakup, ice would pile up so high outside your place, you'd be wondering if, if it was going to come up any higher, and For the last several years, there's really not been anything to look at. It's just a change from the way it was even 25 years ago.
So nobody can tell us whether or not the barge is going to make it here this coming summer. So those are challenges that we think about, but sometimes are out of our control. So we have to think about, what are we going to do? In the wintertime, we're restricted to winter road.
As soon as the snow builds up, they start pushing the snow off the road, and then you get a water truck comes behind and water the rough parts on the road, and then you fill it in with snow.
You know, pull some tires over it, and then you get out there with your grader and your water trucks, and you actually build a road on hard packed snow. And you know, some places get watered, but it's a road through the bush on hard packed snow.
Winter road is important to us when people go out, get their vehicle serviced and whatever they need for the winter. You know, like some of them go out and buy stoves and dryers and whatever they can, because it's way cheaper getting it down south than here in Good Hope.
Given that we have some issues with the barging season, now everybody's going to take advantage of the winter months, and it kind of makes it difficult because there is such a short time frame for that. And with the population here, even in the whole Satu, that's a lot of supplies coming up and down a road that may or may not be open for 12 weeks.
There's expected to be over 250 tractor trailers coming up, which increases the danger of traveling on the winter road for the residents.
Because of the climate change, warm weather and all that, it has stalled the construction of it to a later date. Usually it's in October, but this year it was beginning or middle of November.
We didn't have hardly any snow till Christmas, so we're building roads, and you know, we had to use a fair bit of water and more than normal because we had lack of snow and cold weather. Didn't get cold really this winter. I mean, we had one little week-long 40 below snap, 37, 38 below snap, but you know, right now it should be 30 below. And what is it, 20? You know, and it's scary. Look at the weather. You know, so I predict an early spring, but who knows?
What's the solution? That's a really good question.
The solution would be is if we have an all-season road, you know, a gravel road that we can drive from here and drive south, and that would cut a lot of worries off.
We call it a highway. It's not the 401 or the Queen Elizabeth II. It's going to be a single lane in both directions, and it's gravel. So the term highway is a bit of a misnomer when you talk to people in the south. The expectations might be a little bit higher, but basically what we're really trying to build is an all-weather road.
It'll bring the prices down.
Lower food prices, lower gas prices.
The resupply for the groceries, gas, everything that's needed for us.
Supplies that we need immediately, we can go out and get. We can have it hauled in.
Well, instead of the government storing a year's supply of fuel in, say, Toledo, they would resupply as required by truck.
There's also the benefits of sporting events, kids traveling between the region, connecting with family. And for example, if you live in Leduc and your parents live in Edmonton, it's not a big deal to go visit your parents. We should have that same opportunity here in Norman Wells and Satu.
It would make it easier for us to be able to have a commute. If people wanted to live in Toledo and come here for work, it would allow for some inter-community travel. Tourism, I think, would increase. I think that, yes, there's a possibility that we'd get more people up here. I know people are leaving now because of the cost of living.
Some people come up here and they never leave. The beauty, they find solitude up here.
Access to resources. Who gets access to that is a different story, I guess. Talk about Imperial Oil. As we're probably all aware of their remediation reclamation project. In our opinion, that road and the project goes hand in hand. As you know, they have plans to leave, or they were talking about leaving all their waste where it is. We're saying it's not our waste. You take the waste south where all the money went. Take it south. So that's our thoughts, which is why we say build a highway. We already agree and understand that governments don't build highways for people to walk on. It's for a specific purpose, whether it's for economic reasons, whether it's access to resources. Irregardless, the communities in the region have its reasons why it supports the highway, or it doesn't support the highway. People in communities may have mixed feelings, but in our case, when we look at the impacts, how the seasons are changing, we as a community want them to finish that highway.
We want to be in on anything that happens, and not just government to be involved, but our land corporation, which is our economic arm. We're not against development, we just want to be part of it.
Like I said earlier, we got a lot of potential here in our region. So, you know, our doors are open. You want to do business, come on up.
As we all know, there's a war going on right now in Ukraine, and we hear all the news, and that starts to make me think about we're accessible from the north. How is the country going to defend us? So the only thing that I see that's missing, that's to get up here, is the highway. You want to protect the north, you need a highway.
We'll feel secure, and I think the military will feel a little more secure too in maintaining a stronghold on the northern part of Canada, because we are remote. The Satu is very remote. It was done with the Alaska Highway using their military, and I think we can do that. It would certainly strengthen their sovereignty over our land and making sure that it's being patrolled, because we're vulnerable up here.
We strongly believe that the threat from China and Russia is real towards Canada. So basically we're sitting ducks.
Being asked to be moved because of a transportation system that's better somewhere else, cheaper living and all those things, you know, that has been done and tried by the government of Canada. So let's build a road so that these people can also be a part of Canada. After all, like I mentioned earlier, they've paid their dues. They've given 100 years of oil drilling. That's a lot of money for Canada. We just want to be treated as Canadians, I suppose, as everybody else, and have the ability to take these trips and have the resupplies and not have to have the constant thought of, we're not going to get our resupply of fuel this year, we're not going to get our resupply of groceries this year, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this stuff up here?
You know, I've been sitting here and I was wondering about whether or not this highway will ever get built in my lifetime. I'm optimistic and a little bit pessimistic. I think my personal views are, if we're going to support the highway, the leaders in the region need to stand up and say so, and not allow others to speak for us. That'll determine whether the highway gets built or not. What's most important for us, what's most important for me, I think, is the story. How it's told, who's telling it, and why.